Invincible! INCIMBIVAL!
Trampoline! Trampoline!
You said what now?
Hello, my name is John, and I could talk about Invincible for 100 million years. So what I wanted to do while we're deep into Season 3 is just kind of give my thoughts about what's going on so far, and sort of address some concerns when it comes to the end of the season. Because without spoilers, there's some big stuff coming up, and I'm a little shaky on if the show could actually pull off some of the series' biggest moments. I love Invincible, and I've been wanting to talk about this for a while now, so now I'm gonna be talking about the comic versus the show, but only up until where the show is. But I'm gonna try my best not to give any spoilers for the comics going forward. Something that I think goes overlooked in the show generally is the music. I know that there's a bunch of like needle drops and stuff that people love. You know, when the Mahler twins show up, they play Run the Jewels every single time. People love that. But I also mean the score, the main theme. Is it a little generic, sort of modern superhero-y? Sure, but I don't know. I like it.
I love you!
Something that I feel like the show is doing a little bit different than the comics up to this point is the comics started out as, in my opinion, much more satirical and much more of sort of a parody of the typical superhero story. You know, all the villains were kind of one-off jokes. The show, what it does is sort of treat these characters, even though they could be on the surface considered to be jokes, a little bit more seriously. They treat them like actual people. And a great example of what I'm talking about is in the beginning of, I think, episode 3, where they're giving us the backstory of those two criminals, Tether Tyrant and his boyfriend, the other guy. On any other show, they would just be kind of normal, like, throwaway villains, but on this, they really do a lot to make you emotionally attached to these guys. Where I think the comic just kind of treats them almost as jokes, the show goes the extra mile in trying to make everybody seem like a person. And while I don't think it was 100% effective, we'll kind of talk about the production issues later, you know, it shows an attempt. Now, I'm not sure if this kind of tonal change is something that is just a result of translating comics to a TV show, but I feel like the series' biggest moments, a lot of times where the comic would treat it like a joke, the show goes for the more sincere route. A great example is when Mark and Eve finally do get together. The comic is much more of a, hey, he broke up with his one girlfriend, what are we doing, you know? With her literally kicking the door down saying, hey, are we dating now or what? And I feel like that's sort of a play on the Spider-Man, Mary Jane, comic book tropey, love triangle romance thing, where the series is subverting that by just kind of getting them together almost to a ridiculous speed. You always think that the relationship's going to be in turmoil or whatever, but no, they just end up kind of hooking up and getting together really quick. Where in the show, they do treat it more of a genuine moment. There's almost an immature, kind of brash nature to the story in the comics that gets swapped out for this more tender, sincere nature in the show. And I guess kind of getting into the production of it, to me, anytime the show goes for one of those kind of stylistic moments, all I really see is the cost-cutting element of it, you know, just playing the music over all of these scenes going on instead of adding in at least a little bit of audio. I genuinely, like, the thought jumped in my mind of, like, is there something wrong with the playback? Did they, like, upload a version with the wrong audio or something to Amazon? And unfortunately, that kind of happens a lot when it comes to these moments where it should just be a stylistic choice. I find myself questioning, like, is it a production problem? Because the show is so filled with these kind of errors. So it jumped out to me as sort of something that's like, is this a problem or is this a choice? That sort of happens a lot when it comes to this show, right? Everybody talks about how the animation could be better. A lot of people compare it to X-Men 97, which has unbelievable animation. And kind of wishing that Invincible could get that same treatment. Now, I think that that's a result of Skybound not having, I don't think, any background in animation. I think this is their first attempt at making a fully animated show, and I think they do it in-house. I could be wrong. But that sort of leads into my biggest concern when it comes to this show in general, but specifically this season, and that's some of the show's biggest moments, some of the series' biggest moments, and the fan-favorite moments from the comics are coming up. They're coming up in the next few episodes, and I, as well as a lot of people, really hope that the animation can live up to that. Now, it really depends, you know? I think that the show has done a good job before of prioritizing these types of big moments. You know, the fight with Omni-Man at the end of Season 1 looks incredible. A lot of action sequences and fight scenes in Season 2, when they needed to look good, did the job of looking good. And I hope that kind of the jankiness of the first 3 or 4 episodes of this season is a result of just kind of deprioritizing those and saving for these big moments at the end of the season. But I can really only hope that. Like, there's no way of knowing that until we see it. And it sucks that the show has to work with these limitations, you know, that there does need to be these scenes that get prioritized versus the whole show just looking great. But I guess that's just a result of them wanting to do it faster and cheaper. It just kind of sucks that it's so obvious when the series prioritizes a moment versus when it doesn't. There's some really important conversations that happen toward the end of season 2 that almost, you know, they look like a bunch of PDFs. They look almost like storyboards than a fully animated show. And you could tell it's like the moment is more about the writing, and the voice acting is top notch. You know, the voice actors are really trying to crush it, and in a lot of ways, it kind of carries those scenes where the visuals aren't holding up. I guess I just wish that the whole show could look consistently good. So in a way, the stakes have never been higher for Mark, but also for the show's production, because there are some of the biggest moments coming up, and if the animation doesn't hold up, it might ruin the whole thing. I know that Corey Walker is one of the head creatives when it comes to how the show looks. I think he's in charge of like the character designs or something like that. And that could just be me preferring Ryan Ottley's art when it comes to the comics. But there are just some character designs that look really weird. I think to the Adam Eve special, which, you know, had probably the best fight in the whole series, even though it was a one-off special, which is strange. But like her younger design has like all these weird, creepy lines on her face, and it makes a character that should be like a cute little girl look like wrinkly, scary, old, small person. It's weird. Talking about some more show changes, I like this relationship between Rex and Ray. I definitely think that they're building towards something there that wasn't there in the comics. Without giving anything away, you can kind of see what they're doing. And as somebody who kind of knows where all this is going, I appreciate the effort that they're putting in when it comes to that relationship. And yeah, overall, they seem to be making Rex more of a prominent character than he was in the books, which I think makes a lot of sense. He's, you know, in the books, he's sort of our eyes and ears into the Guardians, or now ex-Guardians, whole world, and offers a bit of comedic relief, obviously, which I think in the show does a lot more heavy lifting than in the comic, where almost everybody is kind of jokey. But yeah, so they're doing a little bit more than just kind of making him our viewpoint into what's going on over there. And they're taking some swings when it comes to making us really feel for him, you know? I think Rex is much more of a lovable character in the show than he is in the books. I'd also be surprised if we went this whole season without seeing his origin. You know, they've talked about it, he's hinted at it a little bit here and there, but in a similar way to how we saw Cecil's, I think we're going to see Rex's. Speaking of taking things seriously, Amber mentioned her new relationship, which I'm sure perked up the ears of any comic reader. And talking about that for a second, I am very curious to see what they're going to do in terms of some of the things that the series is almost known for, some of its more infamous moments. Not to give anything away, but in my opinion, I hope the show doesn't shy away from those. I think that that's kind of a key part in what makes Invincible invincible. I don't think it will. I know that they're giving the whole thing kind of a fresh new coat of paint. They mentioned that the show is almost like a redraft of the initial comic run. But I hope that doesn't mean that they're going to shy away from some of the more difficult topics. The moment that I'm talking about in particular was one of the most jaw-dropping page turns in the whole run for me. So I hope they go for it. I think it'd be kind of ballsy, and I hope they don't shy away. That being said, Amber is such a different character in the show and has led to some of the show's biggest changes. So not really sure what they're going to do. But I'm curious. Talking about Cecil for a second, Cecil might be my favorite character. I think that whole run of him versus Mark, that kind of stretch that they're going through right now, is some of my favorite stuff from the comics. It's probably this to the end of this season is some of my favorite stuff from the comics. So I'm loving what they're doing. I wish that some of their fight moments looked a little bit better, but I think it's totally passable for now. And it's cool, because I've seen a lot of people disagree with what Mark's doing. And I've seen some people agree with what Mark is talking about. But it leads to some of the most interesting sort of conversations about morality. That is really what the show and the series becomes about going forward. But, you know, you're still rooting for Mark because he's doing what he believes is morally right. It's just in that kind of black and white way that a teenager probably would see the world. And lots of the story going forward focuses on Mark's developing morality, you know, what he believes is right and wrong, what he believes he needs to do in order to be the best version of himself he can be. So they're doing a great job setting that up now, and I love Cecil as a foil for Mark's kind of moral viewpoint right now. Plus, Cecil schooling Mark hard, calling him out when it comes to being a hypocrite, talking about his dad. I love that. Cecil, you're so right. Baller. You can't fly around and act like you have the moral high ground, but then just not apply the same rules when it comes to something personal to you. Hell yeah, Cecil. Similar to Amber, I think Oliver is somebody that might be the result of some of the show's biggest changes going forward. I'm really interested to see what they do with him from here. I think my opinion on Oliver in the comics is he annoyed me. As far as his appearance so far, I like it more than in the comics. I think it's pretty much almost a one-to-one with just less kind of annoying Robin quips like he did in the comics. You know, he's not calling people like fart liquor, whatever, you know. So I definitely like him more in the show than I did in the comics at this point. I think it also really helps that he's a great voice actor. But yeah, I'm really interested to see what they do with Oliver going forward. I think that he could be the result of some of the show's biggest and more interesting changes when it comes to the comics. I kind of hope they change some shit. But yeah, I can't wait to see what the show has in store. Can't wait to see more fights, more emotional stuff, and more of that arm slice move. I don't understand what that is. Is his finger like sharp or something? What is that? But yeah, overall, I think the show is a product of priorities. You know, I think there's a lot to be said about Kirkman when it comes to using shortcuts, stereotypes, and tropes. When it comes to, you know, using all of those things in order to tell a unique story. He definitely prioritizes some characters over others and uses those tropes as almost shortcuts to be like, all right, this is a Superman type character. Get it? Cool. Now let's do something else with him. You know, so using those tropes to sort of play with your expectations and prioritizing the story in that way. It's funny because I feel like the show is doing a similar thing when it comes to prioritizing its bigger moments versus some of its more dialogue-driven moments. It's almost like the show is telling you, this isn't that important. You could just move right past this, which isn't true at all. But as far as whether or not I'm really worried about the back half of this season, about some of the bigger moments in the future, I'm not. You know, at the end of the day, I'm on the show's side. Whether it looks incredible, X-Men 97 level, or it's been looking as it's looked the rest of the show, I'll still love it. I love the series. I'm really excited to see the voice actors for the arriving characters. I think the rumored one so far is a really interesting choice. Not one I would have gone with, though I don't really know who I would have gone with. I just hope that this person uses their lower register when they show up. Otherwise, I'm just going to hear Mike from Breaking Bad. But yeah, whether it looks amazing or it looks serviceable, I'll still love this show. You know, I love the story, I love the characters, and I'm really excited to see them be adapted into the world of animation. So yeah, that's about it. Like, comment, subscribe, follow my Instagram, Reddit, Microsoft Office, Animal Crossing account. Okay, goodbye.